Hi, everyone. As everyone comes in, we're going to let everyone make sure they get into the webinar before we get started. But first, I want to say thank you for coming. I hope that you learn a lot. I know I'm going to learn a lot, as I have in all my discussions with Justin and Tim. And we are looking forward to a great webinar today. So we give it just a few more moments. While we're waiting, we will try a Q&A at the end. There should be a Q&A button in your window. If you wanted to start posting questions there, you're welcome to do that. And we will collect those for the end of the webinar when we take them and let Tim answer them with his vast knowledge and experience. In the meantime as well, while you're thinking of those questions and we're allowing people to come in, this webinar is presented in partnership with the NBDA, the National Bicycle Dealers Association, and we're extremely thankful to them for co-presenting today. Tim is a NBDA member, and we'll talk a little bit about the NBDA toward the end as well. At Retail Toolkit, you can see Justin is wearing a Retail Toolkit t-shirt. Thank you, Justin, for modeling that. We have 3 t-shirts that have our logo on the front. They also have NBDA and P2 logo on the sleeves. We have 3 of those. If you are not a Retail Toolkit customer and you would like to learn more about Retail Toolkit, I'm going to post a link in the chat right now. And please go there and request a demo. And the first 3 attendees to request a demo, we will send them that t-shirt. We'll reach out to you and get your size and address and get that out to you. Again, this is for those who are interested in subscribing to Retail Toolkit, not yet for current customers, though we do appreciate our current customers coming in and listening in today. It looks like we have a really good group today. We have a really nice size audience. We really appreciate all of you taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. And so we'll get started. My name is Jason Windsor. I'm the marketing lead at Retail Toolkit. With us is Justin Bollinger. He is on our customer success team. And also Tim Krone. He is the founder and owner of Pedal in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which is a fantastic bike shop. If you're in the area, please stop by. He's run that store for nearly a decade, and I've really enjoyed hearing about it from him and in various discussions we've had with the NBDA. During this webinar, we're going to talk about a strategy called open to buy planning, which is a inventory management and purchasing strategy that a lot of modern stores are using to make sure their purchasing is dialed in and that they're buying the right products at the right time. Making sure they're buying the right variants of each product, whether that's color or sizing. Smart stores are using open to buy planning to just have more intelligent purchasing strategies so that they can increase their profits. Justin and I are part of the team at Retail Toolkit. We are a software company that provides a customer experience management platform to retail stores. And part of our powerful application is inventory management with a extremely powerful open to buy planning tool. And that tool has from conversations I've had with bike shop owners and other retailers, has really helped those retailers save money on their purchasing and make sure that they're creating the products that their customers want when they want them. And one of the things that we're doing is called the Smart Store Initiative, and it is an educational arm of our business where we're trying to teach retailers about leveraging retail technology to improve their stores and really improve their experience running their stores. We hope that through this initiative and through our technology that we can help retailers spend more time doing what they love rather than sitting in their swivel chair, looking at various different browsers and applications that have helped them run their business in the past. We have an all-in-one retail management platform that does that all in one place. So I'm going to let Tim tell us more about himself and about Pedal and about the NBDA relatively quickly, so we can get to the good stuff. Tim, tell us about Pedal.
Ooh, okay. I started Pedal in January of 2011 and soldiered on along pretty good. In 2015, I purchased my biggest competitor, and I was freaked out by having to manage a lot more inventory. And that's when I became super interested in Retail Toolkit, to kind of put some process around inventory and something a little bit more systematic than what I'd used in the past, which was kind of a finger in the wind. But that's kind of who I am, and I've been a happy Retail Toolkit user. I understand, their product pretty well, and how it works for me, and that's why I'm here.
Yeah, that sounds great, and we really appreciate you being here. Justin, will you share a little bit with us about your experience as an inventory manager prior to coming to Retail Toolkit?
Yes, absolutely. I started off as an inventory manager at a local shop in Colorado, and this product was actually put in my lap when I was just starting the inventory process at the store. And to help, the location or the actual business has been around for years, and this particular platform helped give light on really sensitive areas within the categories, in addition to like buying and other aspects of it. So doing that process of learning the application firsthand and experiencing where Tim's perspective is to where I am today, that definitely helps give me a good leveraging piece of helping our clients moving forward with their application, because it is a really data heavy information, and it's not fun. I mean, it's just, it's not the fun part of retail. I mean, getting a new stuff is, but managing the inventory for day to day and processes and all those, and make sure you don't have high levels of shrink or bad purchases going forward, it's kind of tedious. So this platform really helped out with that. So yeah. I've been with Retail Kit for over 5 years now.
Nice. And so Tim, tell us about what the challenges for inventory management are without any kind of open to buy planning. Maybe let's talk about the practicals first. What are the practical challenges that inventory managers and owners face when they're not using a planning strategy like this?
Well, you're guessing, so that's part of it. You might have some idea of where you want to go, but it's difficult to navigate, right? So, open to buy, it's how you purchase to meet your plan for what you're going to sell over time. And that's pretty great. So the way Retail Toolkit does it is historical data that you've accumulated, that you can kind of adjust for the future. Maybe you think you're going to be 10% up in gravel bikes or 5% down in whatever. You can make those adjustments. And then the idea is to have what you need in the store for the next X period of time, depending on how quickly you think you can turn your inventory. And that's the idea. So if we're thinking 4 turns a year, that's 90 days worth of inventory. And Retail Toolkit kind of says, okay, to have enough inventory to sell for the next 90 days, you need to buy more of this, or perhaps it says you're heavy in this particular category, don't buy anymore. So that's kind of the structure behind the whole thing. But it's really, I hate to say it like this, but it's a system, right?
Sure.
And you put a bunch of data into the system, and then you get some information out of it. And that's the whole deal behind open to buy.
Yeah, and so help me understand what are the ramifications for a business and for a retailer of not using a strategy like this or a tool like this? If you know, what happens when you're going by emotion or by feeling of what you need to buy next?
Well, I mean, there are two problems with having the wrong amount of inventory. If you don't have enough inventory, the possibility for lost sales exists. It's super easy to pick up your phone and order something online in many, many cases. If you have too much inventory, you have to get rid of it somehow. And if it's not super date sensitive inventory, tubes, for instance, perhaps sitting on it will cure that problem. If it is time sensitive stuff like a bike, you might find yourself having to discount this thing more than you wish to gin up some cash to buy a current model stuff. So it's all about having the appropriate inventory.
Yeah, and so for example, practically, like you said, if you've got too much, what are some of the sort of tangible and intangible costs of having too much or not enough of something?
So if you've got too much of something, there's a super knock-on effect. So if you have too much, you have cash tied up, or perhaps credit tied up. You have some asset tied up that you could better use for something else. That's thing number one. Thing number two is you may be putting your profit opportunity at risk, because again, if it's time sensitive stuff, you kind of have to get rid of it, and the longer you take in getting rid of it, the more of a profit hit or perhaps even a loss you'll take. So that's kind of the practical side of it. It's all return, right? At some level, it's all return. And what you're trying to do with inventory is maximize that return. And an open to buy system is a tool that you can use to kind of to plot a course toward greater profitability.
Yeah, and so so we've talked about the practicals. What are some of the maybe more intangible ramifications of not having that certainty, or not knowing, if you've overspent or underspent on a certain category?
Well, anytime you don't know what's going on, it's the potential for trouble is pretty high. And if you're a worrier like me, your sleep might suffer. Those are,
Yeah.
it's the difference between going for a hike somewhere with your phone and being able to, or a map or whatever, being able to find your way back, or just going and getting lost in the woods.
Yeah, and there's a high cost of getting lost in the woods, and keeping those turns high, like you said, 90-day, 4 times a year. That anytime that number goes down, you're missing opportunities for profitability for your business, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we are. I wanted to hear more about. You mentioned that you bought out your biggest competitor. How did open to buy planning play a part in that purchase and in the transition to adding them to your business?
Okay. So I bought my competitor, and that guy was 30 or 40% bigger than the store I already owned. So I went from having what I consider to be a fair amount of inventory to a whole lot more. And my original store is quite small. It's easy for me to walk around for just a couple of seconds and see all of the fine merchandise that I own. The place that I bought was much bigger. It was foreign to me. It took me a long time to ferret out where stuff was. And between friends, I didn't have a great feeling about the person that I inherited to do the purchasing. And I wanted to get that under control. And that's what really started this whole process. It was just too much for me to do what I'd done before. So I decided to get with a program, and this is where I ended up.
Yeah. So as we get deeper into preseason purchasing, what are retailers that aren't using this kind of strategy experiencing during this preseason time?
Well, I think so let me answer this a different way, and I'll just kind of talk about how I kind of did this. So, I kind of think about my inventory again as a method to either be profitable or not, right? Inventory to me is like a super double-edged sword. So I try to get my turns high, and I try to get my margin high, right? So I'm looking at GMROI, gross margin return on investment, which is a calculation involving both turns and margin. So when you do a big preseason, it just knocks your turns down to zero, especially where I live in the kind of cold wintered Midwest. We can be pretty sure that we're going to lose a reasonable amount of money and not sell that much stuff in the cold months. So I used this idea of increasing GMROI. I kind of use that as a cudgel a little bit to really get my preseason down with my vendors that demand such a thing. And so, well, we want a preseason. Well, that's not good for my return. That's not good for my business, and I don't think we want to do something that's bad for my business. So I'm going to share some data with you, and let's talk about a target number instead of over the course of the year instead of a target preseason number. So is that the kind of answer you were looking for?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Okay.
I just know that for a lot of bike retailers, especially this time of year, can be exciting with new products, but also stressful as they make decisions for, trying to anticipate what customers are going to want months from now, and without historical sales data to help them make those decisions. I imagine that can be pretty difficult.
Well, you've got to. I mean, what finally dawned on me one day is that you can't go into this conversation and say, I don't want to do it because I don't want to do it.
Sure.
Right. That's not really like super successful negotiating, at least when I do it. So I wanted to be able to say, this is the plan. This is how I'm running this thing. This is how we can work together. This is where, I'm uncomfortable and I feel a little underwater. So let's see if we can chart a way forward. So that's where kind of this open to buy, this GMROI maximization, all that kind of stuff helped a lot with that conversation.
Yeah, that's great. Justin, we've been talking about open to buy planning a lot, and we maybe need to take a higher level view and understand what open to buy planning is. Can you give us a sort of the elevator pitch for what open to buy planning, how you might define it, the strategy itself?
Well, yeah, absolutely. When you're looking at your inventory and you have this gut feeling and you want to be able to decipher, well, I need to get some data behind it. And with that data, how you extract that data out of your POS or however you do it, it's highly encouraged. If you're not doing anything today, if anything out of today's conversation, start doing something, even if it's at the high level of your higher dollar items. But doing something with your inventory, as in calculating the data, what you've sold in the past 60, 90, 120 days, the last 365 days, getting a snapshot picture of what you might need in the next 90 to 120 days, especially with those seasonality stores. Open to buy, the concept is making sure that you have the right inventory in the right time of season, but not being pigeonholed into taking on too much inventory at one time. Making sure you make those decisions that, as we talked about before, that time will fix it. If it's inventory that can be dated, then you have to really make sure you make the right decisions. So it's kind of like you want to make sure you have the current inventory that's going to be successful going forward, and also making orders that kind of match your current inventory in the next 60, 90, 120 days.
Yeah.
To really start with that, to make sure you have a clear picture of inventory, is you want to make sure your inventory is counted correctly. So a lot of shops and a lot of businesses in retail, they do a 1 year hard count. That's a good snapshot, but that's usually a rushed job. And there's, even within that, there's mistakes. The best practices to manage inventory starts with cycle counting, making sure you're having the correct counts done on a timely manner. Even if it's like, I'm not talking about top to bottom in a month, but if you do within a cycle of 3 months to 4 months, counting all your inventory in the off season at least twice, like one before the end of the year and one at the beginning of the year, during the course of the season, you will have a good chance of maintaining those store areas where inventory may get out of balance, and you got to make sure they're correct. And that everything else will fall into place when you utilize any kind of tool or application. But you want to make sure that is solid and trusted data to start off with, so the mistakes don't go forward. So inventory in a whole, as a bird's eye view, definitely make sure your accounts are good, making sure you have a process of doing those so they actually get done. Managing your inventory to a point where any perspective of ownership, buyer, inventory manager, or sales manager has a good perspective of understanding how the inventory is behaving. So they're not going on a cup like, oh, I need 1 million of these right now, because they're going to understand it's like, well, I don't need 1 million of these going into January, my slowest month of the year. So if everybody has a level of education, doesn't have to be full blown, but at least an understanding of it, you'll have a good, successful inventory approach and a plan going forward.
Yeah, and thank you, Justin. Tim, without naming a particular point of sale system, do the point of sale systems do any of this for you? Do they have any tools for helping you understand what to buy next?
Well, as far as, can you pull up a screen that says, you need more of this and stop doing that? Then I would say no. The data is in the point of sale system. It's in there somewhere, multiplied, divided, factored by your plan for the future. I mean, that's the important thing. You're using historical data, but you're planning for the future.
Right.
So there's some math that's got to go on in there that doesn't really happen. So, I use Ascend today. I used Lightspeed in the past. I think they're both great, pros and cons to each of them. But as far as those guys really giving you a picture of what you need to do with your inventory, they're not so good.
Yeah. And so before we move on too much farther, I did have a question that came in. You mentioned 4 inventory turns a year at a 90-day cycle. In your industry with bicycles, with seasonal and yearly purchasing, is it realistic to improve your turns to that extent using open to buy planning when purchase windows for bikes are generally pretty limited?
Well, okay, so I would say, are they?
Yeah.
I mean, so what's the limitation? Is that something you believe, or is that the stone cold truth? So I think we're always looking at our turns. You can't go to 1 billion turns on everything, right? You can turn floor pumps super fast.
Sure.
You don't, or at least we are pretty incapable of turning shoes really, really fast. But yeah, I think you have to be realistic about what's going on. But I think if you don't know what the number is, how can you say that I either can't or can improve on it?
Yeah. Great, thank you. So, Tim, help me understand. You've talked about this a little bit in terms of when you inherited the inventory manager that you weren't sure about. But what other benefits as a retail owner does open to buy planning afford you?
Well, so I confess that when I had my first store, we shot from the hip a lot, right? I think we should buy some more of these. These look like they're really hot. We should
Sure.
stop buying that. And so it was very reactive. an open to buy plan, a system, if you will, is intent. You know, I intend to do this kind of stuff. And what buying the second shop kind of made me do is think, okay, I can't just keep shooting from the hip, or I'll, you know, it might not sound like this, but I don't have an infinite amount of money, right? So I had to be careful with what I did with that. And so having a plan, sticking to the plan, getting my management to get on the bus with this. I mean, that was all just, it was a turning point for us, I guess.
Yeah, and I know other retail owners that that I've spoken with. You know, the increased visibility into where their money is tied up has been really important to them, and just giving them that more detailed oversight, but in less time, to how their purchasing is being done. Has that been your experience as well?
Yeah, we kind of talked about this before the meeting started, but the deal is in our shop. I think it's a fun place to work. I think we work hard. I think da 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 da. And if we work really hard and everything goes great, we make enough money so we can do it again tomorrow, right? So profitability is important, and communicating the fact of the importance of profitability to all of your staff, I think, is super important. And then you can say, okay, and here's the plan for how we're going to be profitable. Now we all kind of know what to do, and away we go.
Yeah, and that actually brings up a question that we received before the webinar, which is, how do you communicate that to your staff in a way that doesn't feel like you're limiting options for the customer?
Well, this is another thing we talk about all the time is we can't have everything in the store. We just can't. So we have what I call, for better or worse, a curated inventory. I think every bike shop has that. If somebody on the staff has an idea for something that we should do, well, let's talk about it, right? I mean, I don't know everything, but the fact of the matter is, you have to pick some products in categories that you believe in, and that's what you sell. And if somebody wants something different, well, we can always special order or whatever. But again, it all comes back to having a plan. And what's the stuff you believe in? How are you going to execute the plans?
Yeah. Justin, speaking of plans, Tim mentioned categories. How granular can you get with this kind of planning? Is it just category level? Is it just, I need to buy more e-bikes or whatever the category might be, or can we go deeper than that?
Oh yeah, we can go absolutely deeper. Most of the preset category trees, you get it from most POSs, or even what people just design themselves, are just like a really broad brush approach. Like, for example, like floor pumps. You just have, that's under accessories, you're like 1 or 2 tiers down. Well, if you sell a lot of a particular category, it would be very mindful to be able to split it up to more digestible pieces of what price points. Like, does my 20 and below product sell better than my $20 to $50 product? That kind of thing. So when you're able to dive into 2 or 3 or 4 levels into the inventory, it's like onion layers, right? So you get more insights of what's performing and what isn't performing. And then what I've seen with inventory, even with the best inventory trees, it will actually, the more is better, in a sense, that you'll be able to understand what defines that parent category. And there you'll find some losers and some winners in there. And there's where you need to kind of identify where, oh, I'm overbought here, these don't do well, why are they not doing well? So it opens up the conversation. So the perspective of the conversation is like, is it just overbought? Is it not being merchandised correctly? All those things lay in place. So it could have been a great purchase, but just never executed correctly. So when you have like deep category trees for even clothing down to sizes, that really helps give you that insight. And when you're predicting inventory coming in, especially with pre-seasons, you'll be able to look at that category structure, even down to the size, and make sure that pre-season is meshing with your current inventory on hand. And if you don't have that, you may have way too many mediums or larges or whatever.
Sure.
So yeah, just make sure your inventory overall healthier by those
practices. Because you can have dollars available in a category, but there may be products within that category where you're overbought, and so you don't simply need to buy more of a category. Really being able to drill down to even the variant, like color or size, can be really helpful. As we're talking and as everyone's listening, my guess is that this concept might be a little bit tricky to understand when we're just talking about it. Justin, can you show us what? So it shouldn't be a mystery that Retail Toolkit offers an open-to-buy planning tool as part of our suite of retail management tools. And so what I've asked Justin to do is to show us what that tool looks like, and that can help us understand really kind of what open-to-buy is at ground level and what it looks like to do the actual planning itself. Justin, please feel free to share your screen when you're ready. Yeah.
Absolutely. So what you're looking at here is our open-to-buy platform. And what I'm talking about is the category tree structure. It does follow the category tree. And what's really nice about our platform, it is connected to the POS. So there's no manually exporting, importing into that. It just pulls the information. And this is real-time data where, it is for today and what you need to buy today. It's not something that some reports are calculated 6 months or 3 weeks ago or 6 weeks ago, 6 months ago or whatever. This way you actually can look at the historical sales, the Gimoid, what Tim was talking about is plotted in there with turns, and all this data compiles whether basically your goalposts or as bumpers, your min max and your max amount. Not to go into too much detail, but it does show your current inventory and the dollar amounts are tied up into it. But this algorithm gives you the ability to tell you what you need to be healthy at this particular point in time for your inventory level. So yeah, the blue means you need your under, that we have missed opportunities, and red is your over purchase. So when you have more of a granular picture, you have your categories, then you can dive down into your subcategories, and all depending how deep your category tree is built in your POS, you can keep on going down and down and down. So even in here, like even you'll find some red populating in some areas like oh, maybe I have one too many of these. And that may be the case. And where you have other purchase opportunities down the size. So depending on how granular you have your category tree will help that out. So yeah, it's a lot of data to digest at first, but once you get familiarized how the process works, working left to right, this also gives you output numbers on the right side of those categories where you're going to need to purchase within the next, with this one set up for 90 days, whatever date range you select. And even if it's red, it's still giving you a dollar amount. That means somewhere in that category tree, or impossible, even though you may be overbought, but you still need more inventory to support that for the next 90 days. So that's where you're pulling back the mysteries of what inventory is behaving historically and giving an algorithm piece to see what you probably need in the near future in the next 90 days or so forth. So that being said, that gives you a lot more insight and more comfortable where you're at. And the idea is like, yes, you do, I wouldn't say mistakes, but you do have inventory purchases that push you in the red and so forth, but at least you know they are there and you know how it's affecting your inventory all the way down to the tree level, that you understand where, oh, okay, I'm either comfortable with that or uncomfortable with that. And if you're uncomfortable with that, you got to devise a plan to take care of those situations where it's pain points. So this will, hopefully over time, this particular situation will resolve itself by implementing those practices, but at the end of the day, hopefully get more sleep. So there's a lot less stress on that.
Yeah, and this isn't simply a spreadsheet with a couple little formulas in it. This is a pretty powerful algorithm runs this tool, correct?
Yes, absolutely. It takes a lot of different data points and makes the secret sauce of giving these min-max numbers, which there are some adjustments to it, obviously. because you got to anticipate categories where you may not have any nutrition, like newer categories like e-bikes or gravel bikes, where you make a new category that's the latest, hottest things come down. And you just need to separate those so you can keep track of it. But yeah, it's pretty in-depth detail. It's a lot of data, and it gives you a lot of insight. And we have the ability of, what's really nice about it is you don't have to spend hours calculating all of this stuff. It does it at night. And if you need a fresh report, you run a fresh report, and in a couple of minutes, you'll have actual data or precise data, even though you received a whole bunch of stuff or transferred a whole bunch of inventory between multiple locations. And multiple location aspect of this is huge, because this gives you the ability to manage inventory at an individual location level as well as a whole company view.
Which allows you to balance inventory across stores. So you might have too much of something in one place and not enough in another place. And then the cost of correcting that is a lot less than marking down in one store and ordering net new in another store. Correct?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. Tim, what has using a tool like this done? You said you were a worrier. This increased visibility and better planning, I imagine, has helped quite a bit.
If you're doing it right, it's great. If when you look at this thing and it says you're $100,000 over where you ought to be, that can be alarming. But knowledge is power, and there's a lot of information in this. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's probably a little bit easier to worry about something that you know than worrying about what you don't know, right?
Easy worrying. It's the best.
Yeah, I try to implement that in my own life as much as possible. Thank you, Justin, for sharing that with us. So as you can see, the tool that we offer is incredibly powerful. It's not simply a spreadsheet. It has a lot of technology behind it that brings those numbers into focus and helps put together a strategy for moving forward, no matter what the red, green, or blues come up to be. That way we can offer retailers the opportunity to course correct when they see that that might be needed. Just wanted to start wrapping up. Let's maybe look at some questions. Tim, we have a dealer that carries a brand that has programs that are really forceful to load up on early with, I guess, discounting and whatnot. So when you're making your purchases, do you try to negotiate the same discounts as you spread that purchasing out over the year, or do you just pass on them?
So I think if you do the math right, okay, and I'm just going to tell you, I mean, some of this is right. There's a lot of hidden costs. I shouldn't say they're hidden costs. There's a lot of stuff that's hard to pull out of a point of sale system, and one of those things is shipping, right? So maybe free shipping on a pre-seed, maybe that means a lot. Maybe that's an extra 2 points on top of whatever else. The thing that you have to do, the person with the plan, is you've kind of got to figure it out. Are these onerous terms, are they driving you out of business? Or are they helping you do business? And can you do the math to show that? Which isn't exactly fun, great time around the house doing a bunch of spreadsheet stuff. But that's part of the deal. That's part of having a plan that you can demonstrate to this vendor. And maybe they like what you're saying, and you can get those discounts. Maybe not getting those discounts, but buying stuff when you want it is worth it.
Right. Because at some point, those discounts might cost you more than the discounted amount, correct? Right.
What is your realized margin? Right. That's something, I don't like to look at that too closely.
Justin, if we had someone today said, yeah, sounds great, I'm into it, how long would it take for them to implement? Let's say they've already fully onboarded into our software. What kind of time period are they looking at before that data becomes really valuable And again, I know one of the variables is their product category tree optimized, and what we mean by that is, do you have only 5 categories and everything falls under that, or have you really organized your products in a way that will allow a tool like this to succeed and give you the insights you need? Because this tool is really only going to be as good as the data that it gets in, and if that data is disorganized, then it's going to be much harder. So Justin, let's assume that their products are optimized, they've onboarded. Day 0, what kind of time period are they looking at before this is really helping them out?
Within 24 hours, 48 hours. Once we have a connection, I mean, there are some limitations. I mean, with software, you do have some limitations, like how long you've been on the POS system, that kind of thing. But with what we found at Retail Toolkit with our algorithm piece, and how it's designed too, it's kind of like fine wine. Because from day 1, we start calculating turns within each category, subcategory, and below. So we're doing this little busy work on the behind the scenes. Well, in the snapshot out of the box picture, we can do, right out of the bat, we can do little adjustments and get a real good picture of what your inventory is, your health is, and then you can start advising plan of actions immediately. And through the course of the year, with all those turns, we have this piece that we can go over to dynamic, where it calculates all those turns we've been acquiring for a year and give you even cleaner, more precise, pinpoint, accurate guardrails for each category and subcategory. So it gets even better and better and better. That being said, the people that are using it, it does the same thing. At first, it's informational overload, right? There's a lot of numbers. How do I digest this? How do I work with it? But if you break it down into even more smaller digestible areas, like categories, like, hey, just look at shoes just today. Just look at shoes and handle that, and go from there. That the behavior of the person that's managing inventory, or even the ownership to the buyer to the inventory manager, once they utilize and lean on this tool more, first, they develop a sense of trust with it, and knowing their pain points that they need to address immediately. If it's anything from buying too much to need to count something again, or inventories wasn't put in correctly in the POS level, because there's always been some when we turn this on, we always find some anomalies within your POS. They're like, okay, this is giving you false information, it need to be fixed, either it's bad SKU or whatever. So from day 1 forward, you're just helping your inventory. And when you get to, within what I've seen, yeah, you turn it on and it's like red everywhere. It gives you like a heart attack and you think you're gonna die. But it's okay, because at least you're seeing it up front, it's getting the results. And then you can do adjustments to maybe make it more clear numbers. But from there, you make those plan of actions. And I've seen within as little as 6 months, able to turn this around where you've got a really good handle on your inventory. And not just to turn it around and keep it, just get it in a good place. It helps you maintain it and keep it in that good optimum or for you place for a long period of time going forward.
Yeah, sounds great. Tim, one last question, unless, again, please feel free to ask questions. This is a relatively broad overview, but we will try to answer questions that make sense to answer in a broad overview. But Tim, what are some of the best strategies for maybe selling from a category that you're overbought on, but you don't really want to discount, you don't want to really liquidate that inventory? Are there ways to just deal with it without taking a loss on it quite that way?
I wish I were better at this, frankly. And hopefully, good inventory management means that you have to face it less. But gosh, it's a case by case thing. We talked about, if it's not time sensitive stuff, maybe time will take care of it.
Right.
If it is time sensitive stuff, man, you got to get that out where somebody can see it, and maybe love it.
Yeah, and there might be promotions that you can associate with those products that aren't discount based.
Right. Right.
Yeah. for example, you might, if your store has a rewards program, especially one like the one we're about to debut, you could offer double points on those products. And that's not exactly the same as taking the discount on it. But there are lots of other strategies you can use to make those products more attractive in the short term as you need to get back where you need to be with that category. That's just one idea. I don't see any more questions, which thank you everyone who did send in a question. Hopefully you got the answer you're looking for. Tim, can you talk about NBDA and the P2 group?
Oh boy, can I ever. Hopefully everybody is aware of the NBDA, the National Bike Dealer Association. NBDA has been around a long time. NBDA is good. It's a unified voice for bicycle retailers. The NBDA is very focused on education through podcasts, webinars, things like that. The P2 program, P2 stands for the Profitability Project. It is based off of automotive 20 groups, in which non-competing dealers get together and compare KPIs, key performance indicators, such as bicycle Jim Roy, and ideas. So a very collaborative, super duper helpful organization. I've been a P2 member for many years, and it's some of the best money I spend. So that's that.
Yeah, that sounds great. And if you'd like to learn more about the NBDA, we have a page on our website, retailtoolkit.com/NBDA, and you're welcome to visit that and let us know if you're interested in learning more about it. If you're currently an NBDA member and you're interested in Retail Toolkit, we do offer a membership discount or a discount to members of the NBDA. We offer $250 off of your setup fees, which should go a long way to helping you get started, getting set up and getting going with, for example, our open to buy planning tool as part of our larger inventory tool. And even, the inventory tool is only one of 6 tools that we offer, and the open to buy feature is a small part of our inventory tool. So as you can imagine, this is a pretty powerful platform if open to buy is only a small part of it. And if you'd like to see more about our software, if there's a particular part of it that you're interested in, then you're welcome to request a demo. I've placed a link for that in the chat. Again, the first 3 non-customers that request a demo will get a Retail Toolkit NBDA t-shirt. So we'd love for you to let us tell you more about it and do a deeper dive into what our software can do. And then we can learn more about you and see how our platform could help you increase your profitability and minimize purchasing spend that doesn't need to happen, in addition to lots of other spend. In terms of costs, those are we're getting a lot of questions about costs for our open to buy tool. Again, our open to buy tool is part of a larger inventory tool, and then the inventory tool is part of a larger platform. And any cost discussions will happen after a demo with our sales team. They will be able to put together a package that makes the most sense for your business. Things that can vary are number of locations, or there might be some tools that you are not looking to take advantage of. We can certainly discuss and price out a pricing structure for individual parts of our platform if you're not ready to dive into the entire thing. As far as this webinar is concerned, hopefully you got a lot out of it. We really appreciate you coming and being part of it. We have been recording, and the recording of this webinar will be up soon. We did invite people who maybe couldn't be available during this particular time slot to register anyway, and we'll be sending out another email with the link to the recording once that is posted, probably in a couple days. And again, thank you for joining us today. And thank you, Justin. Thank you, Tim, for being part of this. This has been really great. I think that the information is really valuable, and I appreciate both of you sharing it with us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Pleasure to be here.
Yeah. Again, if you're in Kalamazoo, Michigan, please stop by Pedal. Say hi to Tim. Buy a bike. And if you'd like to learn more about our software, please feel free to visit retailtoolkit.com. If you'd like to learn more about the NVDA and their P2 project, please visit retailtoolkit.com/NVDA, and we have all the information there and or links to the information. Again, thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. And if you have any additional questions, you're welcome to write those in to smartstore@retailtoolkit.com. We'll be more than happy to answer as much as we can. And check out our Smart Store blog, smartstore.retailtoolkit.com. There's a link on our homepage if you don't want to write that down. We understand. So we have blog posts there, and this webinar will be posted there once it's done. And hopefully lots of really valuable information for you as you dive deeper into retail technology and how it can help you in your store. So thank you so much for joining us. We'll have another webinar next month, and we hope you have a great day. Thank you, everyone.